there's one infection problem that the dairy industry, I believe, tries to keep quiet. I'm certain they wouldn't brag about it, and I'll never see an advertisement talking to you about this particular problem. It has to do with the infection of dairy products with bovine immunodeficiency virus. Another term for that is bovine AIDS virus, and also bovine leukemia viruses. I bet you've never heard about this. But I would think you'd want to know about this. How common is this? Well, in the United States, results showed an average of 40% of beef herds and 64% of dairy herds are infected with bovine AIDS virus. Right now, in the United States of America, 9 out of 10 herds are infected with bovine leukemia viruses. In other words, you can pretty much plan, if you serve a glass of milk or any other dairy product, you can pretty much plan that they're going to be infected with these bovine AIDS and bovine leukemia viruses, because they take milk from various herds and they mix them up in vats, and then these vats of milk from thousands of different cows go on to make the dairy products. Virtually all of the dairy products are infected. Now in Canada, the rate is 70%. Argentina, the rate of infection is 84% for bovine leukemia viruses. When you look around the world, when you find countries that depend upon dairy and beef cattle for their economy, you will find very high infection rates. This has changed in one particular country. Finland started 30 years ago an eradication program, and just last year, Finland announced that it has eradicated bovine leukemia viruses from its herd. So there are some parts of the world, there are some governments, there are some researchers involved in making rules that really take this problem seriously. 30 years of effort, and they finally cleaned up the dairy foods in Finland. Herds infected with bovine immunodeficiency virus are usually infected with bovine leukemia viruses. Now you might ask, how do these animals get infected? Well, one way is by instruments. They use the same tattooing instruments to identify the cows. They go from one cow to the next. Same syringes to give the cows medications. Same dehorning instruments. They feed pooled colostrum. They take early milk from various cows and they pool it together and they feed it to the little baby calves that happen to be in that particular herd and spread it in that manner. It can spread from mother to calf directly. But one of the interesting ways that these diseases are spread in cattle was brought out in April of 1996 when Oprah Winfrey had Howard Lyman on her television show. You might know Howard Lyman. He's the mad cowboy. Wrote a book, very outspoken man. And he talked about the problem of mad cow disease on the Oprah show in 1996. And Oprah made a statement similar to, "I will never eat another hamburger again." And of course that set the cattle industry off. And they went and sued her because of it. Well, they also took some action based upon that particular television show and the public awareness of what was going on. What Howard Lyman exposed on that show and has been telling people about for many years is the fact that the cattle industry was doing a very bizarre practice. They were making cannibals out of cows. What they would do is they'd take cows that died. They're called downer cows. They die from all kinds of problems. They're sick. And they take them and they grind them up and they put them in the cattle food, and they feed them back to cows. Well, after the Oprah Winfrey show, the cattle industry got together and they said, "We're not going to do this anymore. We're going to put a ban on feeding cows to cows." So you think they solved the problem? Well, USA Today did a front page story in June of 2003 where they reported on really what is going on in terms of cow foods being fed to cows. And it's going to surprise you. They do have this ban that you can't feed dead cows to live cows anymore. But you can still feed dead cows to chickens and pigs. Yes. Now when chickens and pigs, they eat this dead cow food, which they process and they put in pellets and other forms to feed to the chickens and pigs. What happens is the chickens and pigs, they chew on this food and they don't chew it up completely. They drop parts of it onto the floor. And then some of that dead cow food goes through the chicken and pigs and ends up being excreted onto the cow floor, partially undigested. And now what they do is they take the droppings from the chicken floor and the pig floor and they compress them into tablets that they are now allowed to feed to the cows. And then there's the waste plate exemption. You know, you can't go wasting things when it comes to food. After all, there could be starving people around the world. They have the waste plate exemption. What that says is if you go to a restaurant, you order a steak or any other kind of beef product, and you don't finish it, they can take that leftover and they can turn it into food for cows. And you can also take those downer cows and you can grind them up and you can make pet food out of those dead cows. Well, there are some unethical farmers that actually go and buy pet food and feed the pet food to their cows. So in that way, dead, sick cows get back into the cow food chain. Now, you don't want to waste anything. So when you go to the slaughterhouse and you kill the cows, what happens is, as a result of killing the butcher and the cows, the blood is pooled and collected. And what they do is they take the blood from the dead cows and dead pigs in the slaughterhouse and they make a formula for the baby cows. Now, all these practices continue because of pressure on the food industry, the beef and the other animal product industries, to make profits. And so they say, their excuse is, we have to do this to be competitive or we'd go out of business. But this is the kind of practices that continue to occur, that continue to propagate these diseases such as bovine leukemia, bovine AIDS, as well as mad cow, which is of great concern. Can you imagine there was just one little silly cow in Yakima, Washington that fell down with mad cow disease and the whole world went crazy? Japan stopped buying our beef, many other countries stopped buying our beef, everybody got scared. One little cow got sick with mad cow disease. Can you imagine if people knew that 9 out of 10 herds in the United States of America are infected with bovine leukemia viruses? Can you imagine what the reaction might be? Both viruses can cross species lines and infect other animals. They infect goats, sheep, chimpanzees, and these animals, they get sick. They did an experiment back in 1974 where they took 6 young chimpanzees and they fed them infected cow's milk, and 2 died within a year of leukemia. Nationwide and worldwide, leukemia is more common in higher dairy-consuming populations. There's an increased incidence of leukemia among butchers, dairy farmers, and veterinarians. Now, most of the cows that get infected, they don't live long enough to manifest the disease. Only about 1 to 5% of them live long enough to get actual sickness like leukemia and lymphoma. The other cows, they are slaughtered beforehand, so you don't see it in all of them. In the United States, annually there are 30,000 cases of leukemia, there are 70,000 cases of lymphoma, and if you get leukemia and lymphoma, or one of your family members does, and you go to the doctor and you say, and you're going to ask, how did I get this disease? The answer is always going to be, we don't know how you got it. And that's true, they don't know. But could it possibly be a virus? I mean, after all, you know that leukemia can be spread by a virus. You go to the veterinarian and take your cat in for a feline leukemia vaccination, don't you? You think it's a problem with your cat? Why wouldn't it be a problem with the cows? And what sense does it make to consume leukemia viruses? I mean, think about it. Next time you walk up to the refrigerator with your child or grandchild, think about pouring them a tall, cool glass of leukemia virus. I bet you'll think twice. Now, this has been known for more than 35 years. This was actually discovered in 1969 that the herds were infected with these viruses. The excuse has been by the cattle industry and the United States Department of Agriculture that this is not a problem for people. It's okay for these viruses to be in the cows. It's okay because the tests that we're using show that this infection does not cross over into human beings. And that's been the reason that they have taken no action and have not made this public, is because the crude tests available have not shown that this is a public health hazard, because they cannot identify these viruses in human beings, the bovine leukemia and the bovine AIDS viruses. Well, that's all changed. As a matter of fact, a study published in December of 2003 from UC Berkeley changed all that. They looked at about 250 people from UC Berkeley. They examined their blood by modern techniques. And they found by the presence of antibodies which indicate infection that 74% of people have been infected with bovine leukemia viruses with an antibody response. Other interesting research from the same investigators, when they examined breast cancer cells they found that 10 out of 23 human breast cancers contain these bovine leukemia viruses.